Well, you know, every parent's top priority is keeping their kids safe. And now that we know that school is out and it's summer, kids need to know how to keep themselves safe, especially if they're home alone.
Absolutely, and that happens to a lot of kids. So we're joined by Jane Rios and Regina Rowley from the Xena group to talk about summer safety. We're gonna have tips for parents and for kids. Let's start for the struggling parent. What can we do to keep our kids happy if they're home alone, even if it's just for 10 minutes because you're running down the street?
Well, the first thing you need to do, we tell all parents, and it seems like a simple thing to do, but make sure the doors are locked. Make sure, double check the doors before you leave. Also, have a chore, something for them to do.
Keep them occupied.
Keep them occupied. That's the best thing that we have found that would keep them out of trouble.
Because boredom breeds problems.
Boredom breeds problems.
Indeed, and then also having a plan. We hear about plans in case of fire, but having a plan in case there's a problem at the home.
Yes, and being a scout leader for many years, I mean, that's one of the first things we do with kids. What is a fire family safety plan?
Oh, yeah.
And that has, I mean, it can be everything from phone numbers to neighbors, to just listing escape routes.
How many people don't do that, Regina?
It's very rare.
That people don't do it?
They do not have a family safety plan. They might think about fire safety, they might touch on it, but an emergency family safety plan, like there's an intrusion, where's a safe place in the house, what do you do if someone intrudes, typically is not covered.
Yeah, I have to say, when is the best age to do that though? Because you know, like I have a 2-year-old, I can't be like, okay, we're going to meet in. I mean,
right? No,
right?
when they have the ability to do that logical thinking process. So if they can walk themselves to school, then they're probably able to follow a safety plan that you put in place at home.
Okay. I think back when I was a kid, and one of the things my parents always told us is never answer the door when somebody knocks. Is that still the advice?
My advice is no, you don't open the door. You keep it locked. But for a child, especially if they're home alone, to holler out, "Dad, I've got the door."
Yeah.
Let someone who's on the outside know there is someone home so they don't think it's a vacant home and come in, because that's when you end up with really ugly situations where they thought it was an empty home, quick burglary, and now there's someone there that's a witness.
Yeah, that's the number one thing. My kids are not allowed to open the door, period, the end, even if there are cookies on the other side.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And what are the other tips for kids?
Well, other tips for kids are just, again, you want to make sure that the doors are locked. You want to say something when the bell rings. You want to
if they're home alone, make sure there's certain times they're supposed to call and check in with you, or you're calling and checking on them. Maybe
let's bring the kiddos in. Do they actually know phone numbers? Do y'all know phone numbers, or everything's on a cell phone so we don't know anything anymore?
We're going to show a self-defense tip if you like.
Show me your self-defense tip. Sure.
Come on up, guys.
Come on down. Don't be shy.
One of the main things that happens to kids is they get pulled in or pulled away from a car. So Regina was going to show with Joshua how they could get out of a grip.
So if someone is, whether it's an intrusion in the home or you're out on the sidewalk or in the park, someone comes up and grabs you by the arm, you want to think about where the opening of the thumb and the finger is, and then turn the wrist so that the narrow part of the wrist is toward that opening. And then the child pulls their hand toward their opposite shoulder, bringing their elbow up, which works as a second defense mechanism.
Okay. Interesting.
So that's a simple tip that could
very simple, and you can practice it with mom and dad. One last tip real quick is if their child is walking away after an intruder has come up to them in the park and grabs them from behind, the child can throw their head into the intruder's head, pull their hips forward, and then airplane their arms out as they throw their hips into the.
But you got to practice it.
Absolutely.
It doesn't happen unless you practice it. All right. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate it.
All right,
thank you.
We'll be right back. Thank you all.